Ardennes, December 1944. A German captain lowers his binoculars and asks, "Who commands these men?" In a frozen clearing, 12 Americans move without orders. Their lieutenant lies still in the snow. There is no shouted command. No radio crackles. Yet the men slide through ditches, shift along an embankment, and begin to shape a flanking trap for the machine gun that ended their officer's life. Across the clearing, a question forms that will echo through the winter. Who is in charge of them? The answer begins far from this snow. It begins with a defeat that shattered a Prussian army, and with a doctrine that taught officers to think, October of 1806, Jena and Auerstedt. Napoleon breaks Frederick the Great's legacy in a single storm of movement. The Prussians, drilled to wait for orders, meet an enemy that acts when the situation changes. Out of that humiliation, Gerhard von Scharnhorst and his protégé Karl von Clausewitz begin the long rebuilding. War is chaos. No plan survives first contact. The man watching the front cannot wait for a distant voice. So give him intent, not instructions. Give him purpose, not a script. Let him act. Helmuth von Moltke the Elder refines the idea and gives it a shape. Auftragstaktik, mission tactics. An order that can be misunderstood will be misunderstood. Therefore, do not dictate detail. State the aim. Then trust the man on the spot. There is a story every cadet heard. Prince Frederick Charles rebukes a major for a tactical mistake. The major says he only followed orders. The prince replies, "His Majesty made you a major because he believed you would know when not to obey his orders." That sentence is a kind of quiet revolution. It empowers the officer who reads the ground under fire. By the time the Wehrmacht crashes into Poland in 1939 and rips through France in 1940, the doctrine shows its teeth. Rommel drives so far ahead of his headquarters that maps cannot find him. French orders take a day to reach the front. German subalterns take bridges and crossroads on their own motion. The machine of initiative is at its peak. Then comes February 1943 and Kasserine Pass. American troops, new to the theater and new to war, meet veterans of the doctrine and break 5 days. Thousands of casualties. Tanks abandoned. German commanders look at the wreckage and say, the Americans have factories but not soldiers, wealth but not warriors, the dollar army. It is a verdict that will not survive the next 18 months. The 6th of June, 1944, Omaha Beach. A company of the 116th Infantry Regiment lands in the wrong place at the wrong time and is torn apart. Within minutes, the officers are down. The sergeants are down. Men cling to stones and to bodies while the tide creeps up the sand. By every rule, their defense should collapse. Instead, something else happens. 2 men at a time. 5 men at a time. They rise, they run, they act without permission. A lieutenant named Leo van der Voort stands and shouts what would become a kind of blunt prayer. Let us go. There is no use staying here. We are all going to get killed. He sprints toward a gun and throws a grenade through its mouth. Others follow, not because an order was given, because the situation demanded a voice and then a movement. Brigadier General Norman Dutch Cota walks through fire and disarray and knits strangers into squads. Rangers lead the way, he says, and the words become a banner that will outlast the day. Lieutenant Colonel Max Schneider, meant for Point du Hoc, looks at the surf, looks at the cliffs, and decides. He bends the plan. He takes his battalion to Dog Red and saves lives by doing so. And at the smallest scale, the scale where war is only a few men and a few yards, a private named Carlton Barrett drops his rifle in deep water and swims again and again to pull the wounded from the surf. No permission, no plan, only the knowledge that someone has to act, and that the someone is him. German defenders study the beach afterward and ask a strange question for the heirs of mission tactics. Who commanded the small units? Who told those men what to do? They are not asking for names. They are asking for categories. They are searching for a slot in a hierarchy that explains it. Their doctrine empowered officers and senior non-commissioned leaders. It did not imagine that the private might carry intent in his bones. 6 weeks later, in the hedgerows of Normandy, the pattern repeats. The Bocage is a maze of earth and root and hedge. Each field is a fort. The German defense turns every gap into a kill zone. The American advance crawls, yard by yard, under a cost that darkens entire divisions. German reports from those fields return to one word: improvised. Small American groups appear on flanks no manual expects. Fire comes from angles the classroom never taught. A squad moves, then a private moves. Then a pair of friends crawl through a hedge bank and cut a line of retreat. The leader shifts again and again. Sometimes a sergeant, sometimes a corporal, sometimes a private who sees an opening and takes it. In that same maze, a quiet sergeant named Curtis Culin listens to complaints and stores them. Tanks belly up on hedges and die when a Panzerfaust waits on the far side. A Tennessee soldier jokes about sore teeth for tanks. Culin stops laughing. He scavenges steel from beach obstacles. He welds prongs to a Sherman's nose. He shows a battalion commander. Then he shows Omar Bradley. Within days, hundreds of tanks carry rhino teeth into the hedgerows, and the wall that held up the advance begins to break. A sales promotion assistant from New Jersey, with no engineering pedigree, looked at a problem and solved it with what he had. That, too, is the same story as the squads on Omaha. A man with no authority beyond his stripe accepts that responsibility and action belong to him. Where did this come from? Not from a manual. American doctrine on paper was detailed and prescriptive. German doctrine on paper was permissive and flexible. But the Americans who held rifles were not reading a manual that told them when to act. They had been raised in a culture that rewarded action before permission. Volunteer fire companies, sandlot baseball without adults, farm boys who handled machines before they could shave, mechanics who spread an engine on a kitchen table and put it back together by feel, barn raisings that finished in a weekend without blueprints. A national habit of solving the problem in front of you. In uniform, the habit did not disappear. The rifle became a tool among others. The mission became the barn. So why did the doctrine that had conquered France falter in 1944? The answer the Germans will never print in their memoirs can be heard in rooms they did not know were wired. But first, the battlefield truth. The Eastern Front consumed the experienced core of the Wehrmacht. Leaders who read the ground from the front were the first to die. That is what mission tactics requires. Replace them quickly, and you replace experience with rank. A division like the 21st Panzer in 1940 and 1944 carries veterans in its frame. A division like the 352nd defending Omaha is only months old, patched from casualties. A mix of teenagers and men recalled to the line, led by officers promoted because no one else remains. The doctrine begins to eat itself. The bold die for being bold. The replacements are not ready to be bold. Then comes the second wound, Hitler's hand on the map. No withdrawals without permission, generals sacked for independent judgment. The trust that mission tactics requires crumbles. The system drifts from Auftragstaktik towards something else. Order tactics. Wait for the word. Do nothing without the word. As the German chain grows rigid, the American chain quietly loosens. Young officers notice that when they let sergeants solve the problem gets solved. So they let them. The loop reinforces itself until orders become intent, and intent becomes trust. December 1944. Bastogne. The 101st Airborne drives through winter to hold a crossroads none of them knew the day before.